Hello, my name is Makeda Mahadio and you're watching CNBC Africa. This is a CNBC Africa special, Captains of Industry, and today's feature is the Director General of Rwanda Broadcasting Agency, which is the home of Rwanda TV and several radio stations around the nation. He is also the Vice Chairman of the African Union of Broadcasters. He has 19 years of experience, including stints as Managing Director of the New Times Rwanda, as well as contributing to Reuters and Associated Press, among others. Arthur Asiimwe seems to be an institution in media in Rwanda himself, and today we're going to find out how he got here. Thanks so much for joining us on the show today. You know, really what we want to get into is your journey. How did you get here? Was there any special mentors? Did you study media? How did we get to where we are today?
First of all, thank you so much for having me on the program. The journey has been long. I think I grew up in a culture of reading. Right even from my early school days in primary school, I used to read a lot. I used to read magazines. I remember in my secondary school, I think I was editor of the school magazine. And so writing was a passion that I had. And when I went into high school, I studied literature, and you know, gives you some more skills on writing. And somehow I found myself into the media. Right after my high school, I got a job with the New Times, and that was around 2001. And from then onwards, I have been right in the media for the last many years that you've said.
Right. So you went from an actual journalist to the head of a broadcasting association. You know, some would say there are different techniques, different talents that you have to be the leader of an institution like this and a journalist. How do you think being a journalist informed you being the boss today?
I think, being a journalist was the basis for me to rise through all the ranks and be able to head the national public broadcaster of my country. And I think I've shared this with so many people. I am probably one of the person who never skipped a level in the field of journalism in a sector. I started off as a small young boy, as a reporter trainee. You know, come in a newsroom, you're from high school, they teach you how to write a story, frame a story, and make sure the story is readable and publishable. So from a reporter trainee, I became a reporter. From a reporter, I became a senior reporter. From a senior reporter, I became a sub-editor. From a sub-editor, I went to an editor. From an editor, I went into working for the foreign news agencies, Reuters, like you said, and AP, and East African. So I think I've virtually been at every stage of journalism until this level that I attained of being lucky to head the National Public Broadcaster. I think it all goes back to one thing. It's first of all, you need to be patient. Secondly, you need to know where you want to be. You need to accept to learn things, and be professional in whatever you do. Make sure that wherever you are and whatever role you have, you deliver to the best of your ability. And I think, God has been lucky to me that I moved from that small level to where I am. And of course, I'm lucky that the government gave me this kind of opportunity, because it's very occasional that you have such an opportunity.
Right. Was there a certain turning point in your career where you went from journalist to leader?
Yeah, I think when I finished my when I went to Canada for my master's program, when I came back, I had a job offer again. I left Reuters, and when I came back, I writers wanted to still have me back, but I said no. I think it's high time that I contributed now, locally to improving the sector in my country. I said let me take on a local job and be able to see if I can transform, if I can contribute, if you can, because the levels of professionalism and even the entire level of the sector was really not that impressive. So after my program in Canada, when I came, I said let me contribute towards building the local media, and I think that was a turning point. So that's when I got the opportunities, and we are lucky that we have a leadership in this country that recognizes young talent. If they see that you have the skills, if you see that you're responsible, if you see that you're a person who can make a good contribution, they'll definitely give you an opportunity, and that's how it happened to me.
Right. You talk about the professionalism in the sector in those days. We're now celebrating 25 years after the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, and I think a big part of that story that's being told is the role that media played in the whole scenario. Do you feel a sense of responsibility with the country having had that history? What has that contributed to your career?
One of the values that I believe in seriously is responsible journalism. And I think one of the values that we put here at RBA is one of the core values that we have is responsible. Meaning that whatever you do, you need to know that you're doing it for the better of your society. That if your society tomorrow got destroyed by whatever sort of crisis, that if you as a journalist, you're still part of that society and you're going to be affected. So a journalist is not an island of himself or herself. Whatever you write, whatever you do, that can destroy society would still also destroy you. You're not going to be left aside that because you are a journalist. And so, so our history taught me that we need to do whatever we do. We need to be responsible. We need to be mindful of our history. We need to be conscious of the fact that some statements we make or some paragraphs we write can bring a sense of conflict in society, and you don't want to go back into that. And so, responsible journalism is one thing that we really emphasize so much within our editorial policy at RBA. Largely because our journalists that were there before us, especially during the genocide against Tutsi, were very responsible. They were used as a tool to exterminate over 1 million people. So we cannot afford to be used again as a tool to drive any agenda of anyone that is going to damage the peace and tranquility that we enjoy today.
Do you find that today there is, one of the things that we hear, it feels a bit repetitive actually, is this idea that there isn't enough free press in Rwanda? Do you find that you have to stop a lot of stories? Do you find that the line is thin between what is appropriate to publish and what's not? Is there any validity to this story that comes up once every year?
Makeda, I've been lucky to be in this sector for quite some time. I know the journey that we have traveled from right 2000 until today. I see the progress that we've made as a sector. I know sometimes there have been some challenges in the past, but I've also seen the effort to try and build a credible, professional media sector for our country, especially on the side of government. And for example, I'll give an example of us here at RBA. RBA, the reforms that were initiated almost 6 years ago that turned us from a state broadcaster into a public broadcaster, meaning that we need to work for the interest of the public as opposed to working for the interest of the government. And ever since we began this journey, people go out and report whatever they want to report. Whatever mistakes that are out there that we get to know, we report about them. I have not had an incident of a minister asking me, why did you run a story? Because I think even a minister has no authority to ask to question us. I've not had an incident of any person of authority questioning us on anything we've run. Because we also need to be, like what I said, we also report responsibly. We need to report facts the way they are. You don't have to go and make up facts. If you make up facts, then you're also on the wrong side of the values of journalism. But you see these reports that are given or issued out by rights groups quite often, and you wonder, are these people really realistic of the journey that this sector has traveled in this country? When you wake up in the morning, Makeda, and you listen to any of the radio stations, any private radio station in the morning, they speak anything they want to speak. They bash members of parliament. They hit at ministers. They speak their minds. And I've not heard of any that is being attacked. So some of the criticism that you see is really unfortunate, that the people who keep saying this have refused to appreciate and recognize that there is progress that has been made. That does not mean that there are no challenges anywhere. And by the way, I always tell my people that freedom of press is not given on a silver platter. You need to fight for that freedom. But you also need to show maturity. You need to be professional in whatever you do. You need to command respect as a journalist. How do you command respect? I'm coming to interview Makeda, and I have my facts right. I've done my research. I seem to be knowledgeable on the subject, even if you're an expert in the area, but I can challenge you, you know. That way you're building respect from the audience. And with that, then you have all the rights that you have.
We are going to take a quick break. We are sitting here with Arthur Asiimwe, who is the Director General of Rwanda Broadcasting Agency. You're watching Captains of Industry, and we'll be right back. Before we took this break, we were talking about, the changes that media has gone through over the years quite quickly, and how RBA and you have managed to sort of adapt to that. What are some specific innovations that you can recall that have helped you to adapt to the changes?
I think the key innovations have been the reforms that were initiated. And one of the reforms I told you was converting the former RM4, the former state broadcaster, who previously, the current RBA, into a public broadcaster. And that it gave our institution more autonomy. Autonomy in terms of how we run operations. So we have financial autonomy, we make our money, we spend it in a rightful way. Autonomy in terms of how we hire people. So we don't have to go through a public service commission like it was before. So we hire depending on competences and depending on negotiations and where we need. So the reforms that were initiated almost 6 years ago were a turning point. The other key reform was how does government move away from regulating the media and then industry regulates itself. So that's why the Rwanda Media Council came in. So government don't have to, if a journalist has committed an offense, you don't have to be paraded in the courts of law, but you're taken before your peers, and your peers tell you, according to our ethos, this is we think is right or this is wrong, and it's much better than going before a court of law. So it has been good. But again, also the innovations have been largely also the advancements we've made in the digital space, where the digital space comes with a very good product for itself. So the quality of our images have been improving day in, day out for the TV. Having a presence on all digital platforms. That means, if someone is in Canada, someone is in South Africa, someone is where, can be able to follow what's happening. They've been very, very important. We have a very big viewership from across the world. And then, of course, trying to attract young talent, young boys and girls that are innovative, that are creative, that are enthusiastic to perform, to give results, that want build a name for themselves. And so you have a young person who takes good care of their program, feels part and parcel of the program, feels responsible, feels that I need to grow it from here to here. That element of ownership is important in terms of having a good product at the end of the day.
Right. What does your position as vice chairman of the African Union of Broadcasters entail?
Wow, now that's another interesting aspect. So the public broadcasters in Africa, usually public broadcasters are owned by government, usually. I mean, the SABCs of South Africa, the whatevers of KBCs of Kenya. So we have this grouping that brings us together. We're about maybe 60 members together. And we meet almost every year, maybe twice in a year, to discuss on various ways of how to advance the sector. So as a vice president for the African Union of Broadcasters, my responsibility is to, whenever we meet, is to ensure that we look at unique issues affecting our colleagues across the continent and how we can advocate through different platforms for these issues to be solved. I'll give an example. For example, so many of our colleagues have not yet done digital migration. Many of them are still in analog technology, which is very old. And so we sort of have to engage governments, we engage leaders to show to say, you see, there's a deadline issued by the ITU, but everybody has to be digital. How can we help our broadcaster or sister broadcaster in a country like Ghana or Togo or name it, to ensure that we advocate for them to migrate quickly to digital space. And other things like sharing content. How do you share content? Why do you have to depend on BBC or Reuters or CNN to get a story on Kenya or Tanzania? Yet I can share with my colleague there. You have the content, a story that is already written by someone who's on the ground, who understands the context, who understands the realities on the ground. So that aspect of sharing content amongst we African broadcasters, so that we achieve what was been saying, Africans saying their own story.
Right. Traditional media, as we were saying before, there's been a lot of changes. You were just mentioning now about some of your colleagues still not even having gone digital, still running analog. How are you using investments now into traditional media? Because it does seem as though everything is sort of moving online, everything is moving towards different other technological advancements. How are you maintaining with traditional media?
The fact is that we just have to adopt. Traditional media is dying. The times of someone waiting to have a radio or moving with the radio to listen to news or whatever program are over. Someone listens to the radio on a mobile handset. The times of someone going and waiting for news bulletin at a prime time are done. Someone will record video on demand, maybe record the news and come and watch it at any time you want to watch it. So we need to move with the times, because if you're stuck to the past old days of broadcasting, then definitely you're not going to make it. And that's why broadcasting is very expensive. It's a nasty industry, because whatever you buy today, tomorrow has changed. Now, for example, we're talking, most of our African friends are still broadcasting in SD, standard definition. Yet, the entire of Europe and North America is moving from even HD to Ultra HD to 4K. So the changing in technology for a sector keeps moving very fast every time, and we need to be moving ahead with the times. If you don't move ahead with the times, then you become I don't think you can still make it in this day and age. And unfortunately, in Africa, we seem not to understand the urgency of this. Especially, may I speak for my colleagues who are in the public service, broadcasters. You find that most of them are not adopting to these standards. So tomorrow you go on the market, you think you're going to look for some spare part to fix maybe your transmitter or to fix your mixer, and your mixer is SD. Yet SD is no longer manufactured. It's now HD or Ultra HD. So we need to be conscious of these things and move ahead with the times.
Right. Where do you see RBA's position in the future of media?
I think we want RBA to be a success story. I want RBA to always maintain the #1 slot on the Rwandan market as a professional, well-balanced public broadcaster that serves the interests of the public. Most public broadcasters in Africa have not performed well. You find they're like #4 on the market, #3 on the market. Where it's good, you find they're #2 on the market. But you cannot say you're a public broadcaster when you don't you're not cautious about audience sizes. Because at the end of the day, it's all about audience. If you have nobody to see you, you're as good as nothing. So we need to constantly be cautious about the audience and audience needs. We have not performed extremely well in this area, especially in the area of doing audience researches to see where people appreciate certain areas of broadcasting or programming. But RBA should be a public broadcaster that serves the interests of the public by being mindful of the needs of our audience. And the audience is diverse. It means the ordinary person on the street. It means a politician. It means government. It means a farmer somewhere. We need to be conscious of the needs of our audience and how do we serve them on multiple platforms.
Right. We touched on it a bit earlier, but I do want to come back quite briefly, about this phenomenon of people online saying what they want to, people just looking at headlines and fake news. What is your thoughts on fake news and the rise of fake news in the region, in the continent, in the world?
It's sad. It's sad. Fake news can lead nations to an instant war. Fake news can lead you to a divorce immediately. The challenge is, how do you get to know that it's fake news? By the time you get to know it's fake news, it will have done its damage long way before. I don't know if there's any technology. I think I've heard about people talking about it, but I don't know if there's any technology that can instantly show you that this is fake news. I don't know if it's there. Maybe if you have something on your mobile, and then you see a story, and then maybe somewhere there's some software that says, this story is fake. But the rise of fake news is imminent. It is growing every day. It's extremely dangerous. And that's why you still need the role of the main broadcasters. Someone who has read a fake story on any online platform should say, okay, wait, I'll verify this with the mainstream media if they report it. So the mainstream media must be trusted so much. So if I've seen that, in the morning I wake up, I say Makeda, fake story, Makeda has been made Minister of Gender. I should be able, the mainstream platforms should be able to be the place where the right stories are verifiable and trusted. But that means you have to build trust. But the rise of fake news is dangerous. It's killing the sector. It's killing media. It's killing trust, because even journalists are now packed. We've now become the same pack. So it's killing the level of trust in the sector of journalism. And I think we need to find a way of how do we deal with it decisively. I don't know how we can deal with it.
We have been sitting here with Arthur Asiimwe, who is the Director General of Rwanda Broadcasting Agency, and you have been watching Captains of Industry on CNBC Africa. My name is Makeda Mahadio. Thanks so much for watching.